go?
We're in Cardiff Castle.
Oh no, just outside. We're going to go inside to have a look at a tour of the rooms.
Oh no, dragon!
The red dragon. Where is the white dragon? Where's the white dragon? White dragon is in Scotland. You forgot?
No, the dragon's chasing me.
And the red dragon's in Wales, in Cardiff. Okay, I'm pointing at the clock tower. What is so special about it?
When it was built, it was kind of deemed in quite colourful.
Colourful was a kind of a sensation at the time. They're even saying it here.
Yeah.
That it was designed in 1866. Caused a sensation at the time with its unusual use of colourful exteriors, statuary and heraldry. Okay, so it's pretty cool.
Yes.
It is quite sensational. Let me see if I can. The weather is a bit funny. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, go on then. Onto the balcony. I really am looking forward to seeing these interiors. They look amazing on the pictures.
Oh yeah.
It's a bit of I haven't seen a castle like this. That's why I wanted to come here and have a look.
Oh yeah.
Up.
So here is down to the end,
balcony.
other end to the start to the tour.
Down to another end to start to the tour. Okay, that's pretty cool.
And then we can shut these.
Oh look, can you see there's a little gap? So you see it? That tiny little gap in the castles.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it was well secured. Look, this is how they shut the whole thing. It was well secured.
Like they had this, they wanted
Yeah.
to open it, and now even they couldn't get in.
Yep.
Even
Okay.
if they tried to climb over the castle, though.
That's right. Okay.
So obviously,
Yeah.
obviously it was not too hard to shut these windows.
Yeah, but it's quite a thick wood, as you can see. Can you see how thick the wood was?
Yes.
Is it 4 o'clock now? Let's see.
Now, we've got 2,000 years of history here in Cardiff. The Romans came in first 2,000 years ago and they built a series of forts on the site. The first 3 made of wood, so they're long gone. The 4th was made of stone. That survives to this day because the modern castle walls are actually built on top of the foundations of that original Roman fort, giving the castle its distinctively square shape. Now the Normans arrived next in the 11th century and they built the keep in the middle of the castle. So that's about 900 years old, a big stone tower that you probably noticed as you come in.
Yeah.
Next we have this house that we're in now. This was originally built in 1423 as a medieval manor house, so quite a small building, 600 years old. Many other rooms are added over the next few centuries. The Georgian period in the 1700s and the Victorian period between the 1860s to the 1890s. And at that time, it's the home of this man up here on the top left. This is the period we're going to focus on, the late Victorian period. This is John Patrick Crichton Stewart, the 3rd Marquis of Bute. Now he's a member of the Bute family, an aristocratic Scottish family from the island of Bute, just to the west of Glasgow. And they married into this castle in the year 1776 with his great-grandfather, the 1st Marquis of Bute, marries a woman called Charlotte Jane Windsor. Through her, he gets the castle that she's inherited, but he also gets a lot of land as well, including the South Wales valleys, beneath which is the South Wales coalfield, and a lot of that stuff down there in the fireplace, Welsh coal. But you can think of it as black gold because it makes them astronomically rich. They actually become one of the richest families in the world, and it's all thanks to that black stuff down there.
Wow.
It's his father who makes most of that money. The 2nd Marquis is the man who builds the Cardiff docks, brings the coal down from the valleys by train, sends it all over the world and turns Cardiff into the biggest coal port in the world and the fuel for the fire of the Industrial Revolution and the British Empire. But even though his father makes all the money, he doesn't get to enjoy it because he dies quite young. It's all inherited by his son here, the 3rd Marquis, at the age of only 6 months old. He becomes the richest baby in the world. He's a very shy boy, remains a shy man. He loves learning, he loves reading. When he's 18, he meets this man down here, William Burgess, Victorian architect, who with a brilliant mind and they bond over a shared love of medieval art and medieval architecture. He becomes Burgess's greatest patron, commissions him to redesign and redecorate this amazing building that we're in. There were no budgetary concerns or time limits. Burgess had complete freedom to exercise his wild flights of fancy, and they also collaborated to a great extent on some of the ideas and philosophies behind this amazing artwork that we're going to look at today. Up on the top right there we have Gwendolyn, the third Marchioness. She's his wife. They marry when she's 18 years old and one of the most beautiful young women in English society. Not too sure about her taste in hats, though, looks like she's got a chocolate box on her. Now she's raised a Roman Catholic, he's raised a Scottish Presbyterian, but he converts to Roman Catholicism at the age of 21, and in doing so actually scandalises Victorian society. It's actually quite a shocking thing to do at the time. So that's a bit of background about them. We are dealing with a Scottish family who are incredibly rich, aristocratic, industrialists, and also Catholic as well. Now we start off in the winter smoking room. We're in the clock tower here, so everything in here is all about time. Up on the ceiling, we have the 12 signs of the zodiac arranged into the 4 seasons of the year, illustrated with some of the outdoor seasonal work that takes place around the year as well. So we have Leo in summertime up there, Taurus in spring, Aquarius in winter,
Amazing.
and Scorpio in autumn. In the corners of the room we have the times of day. The sun god Apollo lifts up the sun at sunrise, holds it above his head at midday in that corner. We've got the moon goddess Luna over there, revealing the moon at sunset. And then we've got nighttime over there, just behind the fireplace. In the corners, in the stained glass windows up here, we have all of the pagan gods from which we get the names of our days of the week in the English language, Norse and Anglo-Saxon gods. Beginning over here on the left, we have Mani, the god of the moon. That's where we get Mani's Day, Monday. We've got Tyr, god of war. That's where we get Tyr's Day, Tuesday. We've got Woden, Norse god. That's where we get Woden's Day, Wednesday. And then moving over here, we have Thor, Norse god of thunder, Thor's Day, Thursday. He is currently starring in his own range of Marvel films, but Freya, goddess of love, Freya's Day, Friday. Satyr, god of the harvest, Saturday. There is one missing. I haven't mentioned Sunday, which is up there in the middle of the ceiling. Lord Bute is not only very devout, he's also a convert, so Sunday is very much the most important day of the week to him, and he gives it a private place up there on the ceiling. Moving on to the fireplace, we move on to the theme of love. This is the winter smoking room, so we have young lovers engaged in outdoors wintertime pursuits. They're all dressed for the weather, sitting around a big log fire in the middle of the fireplace. The quote up above is Latin. This is from the Roman poet Virgil. It translates as, "Love conquers all, let us all yield to love." You can't get much softer than that, can you? But actually not that romantic a room. This is the a smoking room, so it's just for the men. They would come here and smoke and drink after their evening meal. No ladies were allowed in here at all. This piece of furniture, designed by Burgess, has flaps up at the top, which would lift up to reveal rows and rows of cigars, and a drawer down below that would slide up to reveal up to 40 bottles of strong drink, mostly Scotch whisky, because they're a Scottish family, but also port and brandy. It is empty though, if anyone asks. Okay? There's no souvenirs in here today, I'm afraid. Now as we go around, you can spot hundreds and hundreds of animals in this castle, in paintings, drawings and sculptures. In this room we've got birds and butterflies of the British Isles all the way around the walls. Lord Bute loves animals, but this is a religious statement as well, because he was a creationist. He wants to show us that he believes God has created all these creatures.
Wow.
With these dogs in the fireplace, they're a bit more personal, because these are his own pet dogs. He asked Burgess to put them there so he could keep them fresh. As you can see, it's a very fun castle that we have here. William Burgess has an unusual sense of humour. You can think of this place really as a Victorian fantasy of a medieval castle. And as we go around, bear in mind, they will use this for about 6 weeks a year, a couple of weeks at Christmas, a few weeks in the summer. They had many other houses, and they were essentially so rich they could build an extravagant palace like this and just use it as a holiday home for a few weeks a year. We're going down to the nursery next. Eldest son of the family. Remember, the father's name is John as well. In fact, all the eldest sons of this family for about 300 years have always been called John, because the eldest son becomes the next man to speak. So that's the family's tradition, and makes it a lot easier for me to know as well. We've got Margaret there, the only daughter of the family. She's educated to the same extent as the boys, because Lord Beach is actually quite progressive for his time. Colin, the youngest son, he is wearing a dress. It's actually very common in Victorian Britain. Young girls and boys both wore dresses up until a certain age. Ninian in the corner. We'll hear more about Ninian at the end of the tour. Very privileged, well-educated group of kids. By the age of 10, they can speak 5 languages, and the family employs a French nursery maid and Welsh nursery maid, so they have the chance to practice those languages. Lord Beach studies classics at Oxford, and he wants to give his children the benefits of that education as well. So, more importantly, he can very much afford to do that as well. Up on the walls here, we have illustrations of fairy stories and children's stories. Some of these are familiar to us for sure, and some of them may be a bit more obscure. Cinderella up there, we can see her trying on the glass slipper there. We've got Puss in Boots above the door over there. Rapunzel to the right of the fireplace. Jack and the Beanstalk and Jack the Giant Killer to the left of the fireplace there. Beauty and the Beast above the door.
Wow.
Robin Hood over in the corner. We've got Red Riding Hood. Toads and Diamonds up there. I don't think Disney have got their hands on that one yet. In a few years. Toads and Diamonds. There we are. Sleeping Beauty above the wardrobe. We've got Robinson Crusoe above the wardrobe as well. And then right next to the window on the right, that's the Invisible Prince. Now, see if you can spot him there, just to the right, in between the trees. I'll also hold him up in this picture frame now,
Can you see?
if anyone wants to spot him.
Is it just a head?
If you
And
can't
he's,
see, just-
he's wearing
If you
white?
just have a look over here, sorry.
Yeah.
Just a bit easy for you to spot. So above the bird, his chin and his nose, looking over to the right, the crown up in the leaves there, and his shoulders going down between the trees.
Oh wow,
So
I can
it's a
see
bit
it
of a
now.
magic eye
Yeah,
picture to amuse the children, basically.
Wow. Okay.
If anyone's still struggling to spot it, we do sell it in the gift shop at 50p as well. Okay? Now moving on to the fireplace over there, we move on to the theme of this story by Geoffrey Chaucer, which is a poet from about 700 years ago. It's a poem called The House of Fame. It's a magical sort of tale. It's all about not blowing your own trumpet, which means not showing off. Because if you do, you'll grow donkey's ears and look like an idiot, basically. So the family wanted to scare the kids into being well behaved. They told them if they were too naughty, they'd grow donkey's ears and look stupid. And this is carved by Thomas Nichols, a sculptor who helped Burgess carve all of the fireplaces in the castle, and a lot of other sculpture in here as well. But this is actually carved in a single block of stone. Geoffrey Chaucer, the man who wrote that poem, he also appears up here above the doorway. It's a bit of a running theme in the house because he is a Lord Beach's favourite. Now the lanterns in here are added slightly later when the house has electricity installed, just a couple of years after the room was originally built. But they fit in quite nicely because they're all about nursery rhymes. So you've got Rubber Dub Dub, 3 in the tub, A Diddle Diddle, the cat and fiddle, and so on. Alright guys, we're going down to the banqueting hall next. We do still use it as a banqueting hall. But this is actually the medieval part of the building, dating from 600 years ago, the year 1423. It was originally a medieval manor house, and these were the 4 exterior walls of the building that we see here. So this is the main extent of that original medieval manor house. But we're not going to spend any more time in here, because you can always come back with your general ticket, although you might not be able to today, but in any case, I'm going to show you a room that normal people can't see, especially.
Okay. Oops, sorry.
And this is one of the ways in which he's paid tribute to in the castle. This is actually a room based almost entirely upon his work. It's also known as the Beauchamp Tower because this is built by Richard Beauchamp in the year 1423, along with that banqueting hall downstairs. He's just one of many lords who has owned this castle over the last 900 years or so. It's also known as the Octagon Tower because it has 8 sides to the tower. That's why I thought that was moves around. And a lot of things in here are based on Chaucer's work. If you look up at the stained glass windows on the balcony up there, that's actually based on the Canterbury Tales. Unfortunately, it's not possible to go up there. The Canterbury Tales is his most famous work. They're all about a group of pilgrims travelling to Canterbury, telling each other stories along the way. Moving down, we have the Parliament of Fowls and the women who suffered for love. And Chaucer himself looks down on us from the statue above the fireplace up there. The G behind him, it doesn't stand for Geoffrey Chaucer, it actually stands for Gwendolyn, Lord Beach's wife, who we met in the first room. So this is quite a feminine room, I think, because it was designed and built for Lady Gwent. Above the fireplace, these dogs are actually her pet dogs. This shield symbolises her marriage to Lord Bute. On the left hand side, blue squares in the right hand background, that's actually the Bute family's coat of arms. So you'll see that all throughout the house. Down in the fireplace we have the English alphabet depicted on these tiles, tools of the poet's trade. The floor itself is actually a labyrinth. It's not a maze, the difference is that the maze has multiple exits and entry points. The labyrinth only has one, and if you start at the doorway and work your way around, you will end up in the centre, where we have this blank space. It's got a bit of a spiritual meaning. It's all about the mystery of what lies at the end of it. Gwendolyn would also sit there and read to the children as they played around it as well. Now if you stand in front of this house and look at the building from the front, you'll see that this tower has a low flat stone roof up to a certain point, everything up to the balcony. That's the original medieval roof dating from 1423. And above that we have the metal spire that Burgess comes along and adds to that medieval stone roof in the Victorian period. So it's two very different architectural periods coming together as one. Now I mentioned Thomas Nichols, one of the artists that works with Burgess to help him realise his vision. He's just one of many artists that works with Burgess. They're called the Bute Workshop, and they actually do a lot of work even for the Bute family's other houses. Mount Stewart up on the Isle of Bute. A lot of the work is done here in Cardiff, shipped up by steamer to Scotland. And these are men who work with stained glass, paint, and stone, wood, and they're very, very skilled craftsmen and artisans. Another master craftsman in the art of marquetry of carving wood is Thomas John, and he does a lot of the work in this room. We have the four flowers of the British Isles, the Welsh daffodil, English rose, Scottish thistle, and the Irish shamrock, all the way around the walls, all hand carved. Some beautiful birds clinging to the panelling, and some lovely mother of pearl inlays down on the side, down there as well. Now, I'm not sure if it's a unique room, but I certainly haven't seen many rooms like this before. But there we are. Now we're going to go up into the Bute Tower now, guys. As you can see, it doesn't look that much like a garden right now. If you look at this picture, you can see how it would have looked. Lush greenery, flowers down in the planters, hanging baskets around the edge of the fountain as well. It would have been designed really as a pleasant place for Lord Bute to come and relax on a long hot summer's evening, perhaps. Very idyllic and pleasant, lush green space. But the plastic on the roof is not Victorian, believe it or not. It's just put here a few years ago to stop the wild, wet Welsh weather coming through and damaging the delicate tiles down in the fountain. So it would have been open to the elements at the time, but of course it does rain quite a lot here in Wales. Now, it's a very Roman influenced room. It's actually inspired by a trip to Pompeii the family took on their yacht called the Ladybird. But it's not just Roman, it's also Celtic. If you look at the shape of the fountain, it's in the shape of a Celtic cross. So like a lot of rooms in this house, it's an amalgamation of different styles and cultures coming together to create something really new and unique. Around the edge of the walls we have the story of the prophet Elijah from the Old Testament, and beneath that story is told in Hebrew. So downstairs we had some ancient Greek, up here we've got some Hebrew. Lord Bute could actually speak 21 languages to some extent, and he wouldn't have been fluent in all of those by any means. He was an academic interest, he was very passionate about languages. Ultimately he wanted to read all of the scriptures, the holy books in their original languages. He studies classics at Oxford. He's much more interested in this than he is in business or money. He has a whole team of people to deal with that for him. He just wants to sit and read in his library, basically. Now the fountain itself would have cost about £400 in the 1870s. That's not much money to us today, but at the time the average housemaid would have earned about £16 a year. So that's a lot of money to spend on a fountain, and that's just one small piece of this whole grand project as well. Now at the end of the room over here we have a statue of the Virgin Mary and the infant Jesus. That's a Madonna and child statue. There's something very unusual about her, and that's the beautiful smile on her face. It's actually exceptionally rare. You almost never see the Virgin Mary depicted like this with a lovely smile. Now when the sun sets over there to the west, a beam of light will come through that arrow slit at the back of the room, shine across and illuminate the statue, as you can see in this picture here. So a bit of a visual metaphor for God's love, and the fountain itself is actually slightly off-centre to allow that beam of light to get over to the statue when it kneels. If we didn't have any guests, so they wanted to get away from all the hustle and bustle. The ceiling in here is carved wood, painted with 22 carat gold leaf. It's slightly similar to the Arab room. They're both based on the Alhambra Palace in the south of Spain. This also has a bit of a European influence as well going on. The fireplace has a religious theme once again. It's the story of Abraham and Sarah from the book of Genesis. The story goes they're visited by 3 angels in disguise who tell them they will conceive a son. They find this hard to believe because I think they're meant to be about 100 years old. That's where Sarah's laughing into her hand at the left side of the fireplace there at the absurdity of that suggestion, the idea of conceiving a child at that great age. The Greek inscription translates as entertaining angels unawares in reference to the disguises of the angels up there in the story. Now this continues up in the stained glass windows. We have scenes from Abraham's life, famously commanded by God to sacrifice his son Isaac on the right, but in the end the ram gets it instead, who we can see hiding in the bushes up at the top of the window there. Now the table is quite unique, mainly because of that hole in the centre. So the Beat family, they also owned another castle to the north of Cardiff called Castell Coch, which in the Welsh language just means red castle. Around there they had vineyards. They used to produce and sell wine commercially up until the 1920s. So when it came time for a family meal, you'd ask the gardener to snip off a big flowering grapevine, go in a pot, the table opens up like that, and there's a pedestal under there. So they could enjoy the freshest of grapes just plucked straight from the middle of the table at the end of their meal, basically.
Oh,
So
wow.
quite clever, but also quite decadent as well. And if anyone's thinking of redecorating the kitchen, it's a bit of inspiration for you. Now, another quirky touch, there's a little monkey there, howler monkey behind the lamp, if you can see him.
Yeah.
And he's got a nut in his mouth. That nut is actually a button, so if you press the nut, the bell will ring and the servants will come running to help you. But unfortunately it doesn't work anymore before anyone tries to press it.
Yeah, I can see the
The
button.
chandelier in here you might think would originally be for candles. In fact, this was always electrical because this was the first house in Wales to have electricity and one of the first in the entire UK. So Lord Bute was a man who loved the medieval world. He had no intention really of living like a medieval man, if you could possibly imagine. And when you're ready, we'll head into the drawing in. It's a room for withdrawing to. After you read Neil Burgess never gets his hands in this room, because Gwendolyn said she wants someone to relax in the evening. And the only thing Burgess gets to add are those 2 little monkeys up there above the door. It's a very Georgian style of room that we see here. It's from the late 1700s, so it's about 100 years older than all the other rooms we've looked at. When the family was here, this would have been full of furniture, trinkets and plants, but they took all of that away with them when they left. What they did leave us with these portraits here. We've got the second Marquis there. This is the man who builds Cardiff docks. We call him the maker of the modern Cardiff, but another thing he makes is an absolutely enormous fortune, inherited by his son over here, John Patrick Crichton Stewart, the third Marquis. Now this is our Marquis whose home we've just seen, and this portrait is when he was Mayor of Cardiff in the year 1890. Now that's one year the family spent more than 6 weeks here. As I said, it was predominantly a holiday home for the family, but in 1890 they spent a much longer period here because he was the mayor at the time. He dies in 1900 of something called Bright's disease, a hereditary disease of the kidneys, easy to treat now, but back then unfortunately was a killer. His body's buried in Scotland at Mount Stewart, their main house, but they take his heart from his body, place it in a silver casket, and Gwendolyn takes it to Jerusalem, to the Mount of Olives. She said that's where his heart had been when he was alive, figuratively speaking, in the Holy Land. Over on that wall there, we have Lord Ninian, dressed in the soldier's uniform. We met him in the nursery as a small child. He's on the right hand side of the picture, if you remember, and becomes an MP in Cardiff, Member of Parliament for Cardiff East. At the age of 27, one of the youngest MPs we've ever had in this country. It's very popular. In Cardiff City Football Club, he's a guarantor to pay for their new football ground. He puts the money up and they name it after him. They call it Ninian Park. It's not called that anymore, but some people still call it Ninian Park, of course. But sadly, he's killed during the First World War at the Battle of Loos, northern France, 1950. And sadly, leaves behind a wife and a child. Above the fireplace, we have the 5th Marquis, the grandson of our Marquis, arguably the most important part of this story. Because in 1947, he decides to give Cardiff Castle to the people of Cardiff. He says, "The city of Cardiff has given my family everything, so we will repay the debt." There's a ceremony at the gates over there. The keys handed over to the Lord Mayor. People of Cardiff come through the gates as the new owners of the castle. Not only that, they give a big park as well, which stretches out for miles up in that direction. It's one of the biggest urban parks in Britain. Now, I'd argue a big green space like that is a very generous thing to give to the people of Cardiff. And as I said before, the main condition of that gift was that it never be built on, so it always remained a public green space. Now, the family still exists today. They're up to the 8th Marquis. He's in his early 30s, works in London as a chef. His father, the 7th Marquis, was a famous racing driver in the 80s and 90s. He passed away a couple of years ago. But the current one, the 8th, he owns his own Korean fusion restaurant, apparently, in London. And he's apparently still single as well. Now, they're not as astronomically rich as they used to be. They're still on the Times list of the richest families in Britain. You're talking a mere few hundred million, that's all. But their legacy remains here in Cardiff, and they gave the castle to us. So to this day, anyone who lives or works in Cardiff